We must now return to the expression value or price of labor. We have seen that in fact it is only the value of the laboring power measured by the values of commodities necessary for its maintenance. But since the workman receives his wages after his labor is performed and knows moreover that what he actually gives to the capitalist is his labor, the value or price of his laboring power necessarily appears to him as the price or value of his labor itself. If the price of his laboring power is 3 shillings, in which 6 hours of labor are realized, and if he works 12 hours, he necessarily considers these 3 shillings as the value or price of 12 hours of labor, although these 12 hours of labor realize themselves in a value of 6 shillings. A double consequence flows from this. Firstly, the value or price of laboring power takes the semblance of a price or the value of labor itself, although strictly speaking, value and price are senseless terms. Secondly, although one part of the working man's daily labor is paid, while the other part is unpaid, and while that unpaid or surplus labor constitutes exactly the fund out of which surplus value or profit is formed, it seems, if the aggregate labor was paid labor. This false appearance distinguishes wages labor from other historical forms of labor. On the basis of the wages system, even the unpaid labor seems to be paid labor. With the slave, on the contrary, even that part of his labor which is paid appears to be unpaid. Of course, in order to work, a slave must live, and one part of his working day goes to replace the value of his own maintenance. But since no bargain is struck between him and his master, and no acts of selling or buying are going on between the two parties, all his labor seems to be given away for nothing. Take, on the other hand, the peasant serf, such as he, I might say, until yesterday, existed in the whole of the east of Europe. This peasant worked, for example, 3 days for himself in his own field, or the field allotted to him, and 3 subsequent days he performed compulsory and gratuitous labor on the estate of his lord. Here, then, the paid and unpaid parts of labor were sensibly separated in time and space, and our liberals overflowed with moral indignation at the preposterous notion of making a man work for nothing. In point of fact, however, whether a man works 3 days of the week for himself on his own field and 3 days for nothing on the estate of his lord, or whether he works in a factory or workshop for 6 hours daily for himself and 6 for his employer, comes to the same, although in the latter case, the paid and unpaid portions of labor are inseparably mixed up with each other, and the nature of the whole transaction is completely masked by the intervention of a contract and the pay received at the end of the week. The gratuitous labor appears to be voluntarily given in the one instance and compulsory in the other. That makes all the difference. In using the word value of labor, I shall only use it as a popular slang for the term for valuing of labor power. Suppose an average hour of labor to be realized in a value equal to 6 pence, or 12 average hours of labor to be realized in 6 shillings. Suppose further the value of labor to be 3 shillings, or the produce of 6 hours labor. If then, in the raw material, machinery and so forth, used up in the commodity, 24 hours of average labor were realized, its value would amount to 12 shillings. If, moreover, the workmen employed by the capitalist added 12 hours of labor to those means of production, these 12 hours would be realized in an additional value of 6 shillings. The total value of the product, therefore, amount to 36 hours of realized labor and be equal to 18 shillings. But as the value of labor, or wages paid to the workmen, would be 3 shillings only, no equivalent would have been paid by the capitalist for the 6 hours of surplus labor worked by the workmen and realized in the value of the commodity. By selling this commodity at its value for 18 shillings, the capitalist would therefore realize a value of 3 shillings for which he paid no equivalent. These 3 shillings would constitute the surplus value or profit pocketed by him. The capitalist would consequently realize the profit of 3 shillings not by selling the commodity at a price over and above its value, but by selling it at its real value. The value of the commodity is determined by the total quantity of labor contained in it. But part of that quantity of labor is realized in a value for which an equivalent has been paid in the form of wages. Part of it is realized in a value which no equivalent has been paid. Part of the labor contained in the commodity is paid labor, and part is unpaid labor. By selling, therefore, the commodity at its value, that is, as the crystallization of the total quantity of labor bestowed upon it, the capitalist must necessarily sell it at a profit. He sells not only what it has cost him an equivalent, but he sells also what has cost him nothing, although it has cost his workmen labor. The cost of the commodity to the capitalist and its real cost are different things. I repeat, therefore, that normal and average profits are made by selling commodities not above, but at their real value.